Hey guys, back again with another video, another review, this time on an old game, not a current game, and that's Resident Evil 2. Yeah, kind of a classic game that I've never actually played, and I decided to go with the original PS1 version of the game. Well, I guess it's the DualShock version of it, although I played it on the PS3 and I did not use analog controls. This game actually plays a lot better with a D-pad. Surprisingly enough, I might talk about that when we get to the actual controls of the game. But yeah, I guess before we start with the review, kind of my history with the Resident Evil series, especially the older games. I played. Okay, so I've never been the biggest fan of the old Resident Evil games. Resident Evil 4 is still one of my favorite games of all time. That game blew me away when it first came out, and it was such a radical departure from previous games in the series. A lot more action focused, and the third person over the shoulder camera was pretty revolutionary for the time. Although I think games before it had done that kind of thing before, but it was, I don't know, as far as action games go, it was a groundbreaking title. And I loved it. The old Resident Evil games, as a kid, I could never get into them, and I tried over the years later to get into them, and the tank controls always put me off, and just the puzzle focused nature of the games, and just I don't know, the pacing of them, it was weird. I don't know exactly why. I felt like I really didn't give them enough of a chance. Because, yeah, I am an old school Resident Evil fan now, especially after playing the first game and enjoying that. And I did a review of the remake, actually, I think on my channel somewhere a couple of years back. And now after playing this one, I finally get it. I get the appeal in these old Resident Evil games. And they're considered survival horror games, and as opposed to the Silent Hill games, which I've always loved the old Silent Hill games, they're more psychological horror, though. Like, these games really are survival horror at its roots, especially this game, Resident Evil 2, and the first one. Because really the game is filled with tension, and it's a game with limited inventory, limited ammo, limited supplies. You can't save infinitely. You have to pick your save spots. There's always like the fear of the unknown. You're not sure what's going to be behind the next room. You're always thinking to yourself, what do I want to waste ammo on this particular enemy? Do I want to run past them? Could there be a boss up ahead? Where do you want to conserve ammo? And then it's all about kind of studying their environments and kind of learning how everything's connected. It's interesting because I think Dark Souls, this game actually, a lot of the old school Resident Evil games, I think, influenced Dark Souls in a lot of ways, because you've got the shortcuts as you're making your way around this police station, like there's one part where you'll kick down a ladder and find yourself in an old area, and you kind of memorize the locations of everything, and it's great. Like, the level design in this game is fucking phenomenal, as it is with the first game. I like this game a lot more than the first game. That might surprise some people. I think the first game is generally considered, like, a lot of people like it better, especially because it did get that amazing remake. And they're making a remake for this game too, which is probably one of the reasons why I wanted to play this. So when the remake comes out, it would be kind of interesting to compare the two. It's interesting. I think as far as the remake goes, they're probably going to do it in the style of Resident Evil 7, like a first-person game. And interestingly enough, Resident Evil 7 actually takes a lot of influence from these old Resident Evil games. It's far more similar to these than it is like Resident Evil 4, 5, and 6, which is pretty fascinating. But yeah, I loved this game. I started with Claire A. There's multiple routes in this game, and there's like this whole zapping system that I'll get to when I talk about the gameplay. But I started with Claire A, finished that, and then finished off with Leon B, which is generally considered kind of the canon way to play through this game, with the canon ending. But there's kind of differences between the different routes. You'll meet certain characters and fight different bosses, and there's other little differences. I watched a gameplay of the alternate routes. So if I was to start with Leon A and then go to Claire B, which is a really weird route, you can tell it's not really the intended way to play through the game, but there are some interesting kind of differences that I saw. But yeah, Resident Evil 2, I was shocked how well this game holds up. And I've come to actually really appreciate tank controls and just survival horror in general. This is a type of game that you really don't get these days. you have games that take elements from it, but it's kind of a shame because I think there's still a lot to like about a game like this, and it's still fresh from a lot of other games these days. And I really kind of understood the appeal playing through this, and yeah, I consider myself an old school. Resident Evil fan now, especially with this game, and now I want to do a marathon of sorts. I want to play Resident Evil 3, I'm going to play that next, I've got it on the PS3 as well. I'm going to play Resident Evil 0, and then Code Veronica X. I think I even want to play Resident Evil 4 again, so I'm going to do a series review like I do with a lot of series. So I'm going to review this game, but as far as the other Resident Evil games I finish, I'm not going to do a separate review for each of them. I'm basically going to hold off until I do that whole series review, but I did want to talk about this game just because I was so impressed with it, and I think it's a game that's well worth checking out even today, years later. But anyways, let's get into it. Let's start with the story. Now, the Resident Evil games, there's a lot of people that really love like the lore of these games, and they get super into it. I feel like with each game, they've kind of gotten absolute like batshit crazy and up their own ass with like lore and characters and how the games connect. And this is back when it wasn't that crazy. I actually kind of like the story in this game. It's not amazing. The dialogue is really hokey in a lot of spots. There's a lot of goofy stuff. Like all of the stuff with Ada Wong, I thought was just really lousy. Like it's weird because like Ada like professes her love for Leon, and they literally just met like not too long ago. It doesn't make any sense to me, and just I don't know, like that friendship the relationship is barely built up in the game, and there's so many cheesy scenes with her and Leon. I don't know, all of that stuff kind of made me roll my eyes, but all the William Birkin stuff I thought was really well done, and I like a lot of the characters in this game too. I mean, the general story setup, it takes place a few months after Resident Evil 1, where the outbreak has already kind of hit Raccoon City. And like with the first game, choosing two different characters, Leon Kennedy, who's kind of like a cop on his first day of the job, kind of going to this police station that's been kind of like everyone's basically dead now. And it's weird. His story kind of connects with Claire's in a way, but the main kind of thrust of the story is like Claire trying to find Chris, her brother, who's obviously, from the first game. But then you kind of run into this girl, Sherry, and then you're trying to kind of escape the police station with her. And you meet all these different characters along the way, including William Birkin, like I mentioned earlier, who's the scientist kind of who actually created the G virus. And he's like this really crazy character. And his wife is absolutely insane too. And then you meet like the Chief Irons, who's like this over-the-top, disgusting character, which I really liked. I really loved reading all the notes that would be left behind by people in the police station. It kind of adds a lot to like the backstory. And I gotta say, I was pretty into it. I liked a lot of cutscenes in the game as well, and yeah, this is at a time where it was like the characters felt fairly realistic. And not over the top like you would get in the later Resident Evil games. I don't know. I thought it was fairly well done here. It's not gonna it's not gonna blow you away or anything. But I do prefer the story in this one a little bit more over the first game. But still, to me, nothing tops the Lisa Trevor stuff in Resident Evil 1. I think that's some of the best storytelling the series has ever had. And it feels like the closest to something like Silent Hill, which. These games have different strengths than the old Silent Hill games, but I feel like the Silent Hill games, from a storytelling perspective, are like so far ahead of these games, especially the second Silent Hill 2. Like that game is a masterpiece as far as like storytelling goes and narrative. But yeah, I enjoyed the story in this game. I gotta say, there's some goofy things. Like they try to explain like why there's all these random keys and like chess piece keys and all this garbage that you use to solve puzzles. They try to kind of explain that. I always laugh at when they try to do that. And the police station, the design of it is so fucking bizarre to have all these doors that are locked where you need like bishop and a rook key and all this stuff. It's so goofy, but I don't know. It's not like a huge deal to me, but. Yeah, the story basically will kind of change depending on the different routes that you go through. And each route kind of has different characters that you'll meet and things like that. And they kind of intersect sometimes, which is pretty cool. The zapping system I want to talk about right now because it was one of these features that was highly touted when the game first came out, where if you do like Claire A, you'll make decisions throughout the campaign that will affect different things that will happen on the B campaign of the next character. So essentially, when you play through Claire A, as an example, unfortunately, the execution of this concept is not great. I feel like they could have done a lot more with it. There's actually not too many parts where you're actually going to change different things with the second playthrough. But for instance, there's a part where you'll find like on Claire's playthrough, like 2 different items in this storage area. One that increases your inventory, which is crazy, and then another like a power weapon. And you can pick both or one of them or none of them. And depending on your choice there, the other character, when they reach that area in the next playthrough, you can choose whatever item. So that's kind of like one rare example of how they kind of use the zapping system. There's really not that many differences depending on choices you make, which is a little unfortunate. It's one of those things that sounds cool on paper, but then you realize they really didn't do a whole lot with it. Maybe because of the limitations of the time. I feel like you could that kind of thing is done in a lot of games these days, and it would work a lot better if they I just tried to do it in another Resident Evil game these days, and it still had like a survival horror feel to the game. But yeah, the zapping system not amazing or anything like that. Some playthroughs from what I've seen are better than others. Like I said before, the Leon A playthrough, it feels kind of weird. You're really not doing a whole lot. And between the different playthroughs, you are kind of going through the same areas. It's just the structure is a little different. You might get items in a different order, and you start at different locations, basically. You can essentially, there's like 4 different playthroughs, right? I only did like the first, like Leon or Claire A, Leon B, and that was enough for me. I didn't want to play this game 4 times in a row. There's a bunch of cool hidden stuff in this game, which I love. Like there's the Tofu character that you can unlock, and then Hunk as well. There's like this weird battle mode that you can unlock where you're kind of like going from point A to point B with limited resources. So there's a bunch of optional stuff. There's a ranking system as well, which is pretty cool. My ranking was terrible because it really depends on how many times you save the game, and I'm very like careful and cautious with my saving. I really didn't want to be put into a spot where I'd have to redo a bunch of the game. So I saved like crazy. I used so many ink ribbons. So it really reduced my ranking, but it's not something I care about too much. But let's, I guess, move into the gameplay now, which is the part that I really loved about this game. So, classic survival horror, you've got the tank controls, which is probably where I'm going to start. Now, the tank controls are a controversial element of these games. It's what keeps people from really, a lot of people from going back and really enjoying these games. Now, at first, I was a bit iffy on them. It takes a bit to get used to because it's not natural, right? It's not the way you're used to playing a game, but it really does work with the static camera angles that the game has and then the pre-rendered backgrounds, because you'll basically, what if you're moving in a certain direction, when you transition to the next screen and you still hold that direction, your character's still going to be moving in that direction, right? So it's kind of natural in that way, and it's like the remake for Resident Evil 1 had this other control setup where it basically got rid of the tank controls. The problem with that, it didn't really quite work well with the like the transitions, because then you'd have to kind of, depending on which direction you were changing, you might have to switch directions. And if there was enemies in the room, you get stuck, right? And it could be a bit irksome. The controls didn't ruin the game or anything. I actually remember playing with that control setup in the first game and not actually playing with tank controls that much. But with this game, you only get tank controls. So I did eventually get used to, and I grew to appreciate them. And the way it works with combat, it's not so bad with normal enemies, right? Essentially, the combat is very simplistic in this game. It's not a focus of the game. And you don't, like, certain weapons make you feel powerful. Like, the power weapons in this game kick ass. Like, Leon, for instance, will get, like, weapon parts that he can upgrade his weapons with. And the upgraded Magnum is fucking awesome. Like, it's got this amazing kickback to it. And the sound effects are incredible. But these power weapons, you get such limited ammo, so you really have to conserve them. And it's very satisfying when you conserve all that ammo and you come across like maybe like one of the high-powered liquor enemies, and you like take out 3 of them at the same time. It's very satisfying. But the tank controls work well enough for like the standard zombie encounters because they're slow, right? The problem I have with the tank controls is like with the bosses and some of the really fast enemies in the game. For instance, the final boss of the Leon B campaign, you essentially have to run around this boss for like a minute before a character will come and like throw a rocket launcher at you, and then you just one-shot it. The tank controls for dodging they're just not great. Now, that is one of the instances where, yeah, I wish I had full control of my character because it was impossible not to get hit by this boss. Essentially, the boss battles in this game just basically boil down to standing there, just unloading all your power weapons into them, and then healing when you get low on health, because you can't accurately dodge the attacks. You can't. It's almost impossible with these controls. But for the normal enemies, they work fine, and I did get used to them. But I'm not gonna defend them to the extreme. I'm not gonna say like they're amazing and every game needs them. But I do think it adds a certain amount of tension to these games, especially with like the normal encounters. The weapons in this game are, like I said, are satisfying to use. And one of the things I loved about this game is the tension that it has. You're always afraid that there's going to be some crazy enemy around the corner and that you're not going to have enough ammo to take them down. And like I was saying at the beginning of the review, this game is really about studying the locations and deciding, like making key decisions, whether you're going to use ammo or run past certain enemies. Kind of memorizing the police station, because this game's structure is kind of like the first game. The police station is massive, tons of locked doors and puzzles, and then it kind of gets a little bit more linear, and then you'll go through like a sewer environment and then eventually a lab, and those are kind of smaller environments, but you've got a great map for you to use that you can tell which doors that you'll need certain keys for. I do wish you could press a button to just instantly bring up the map and not have to go into your inventory screen, but it's not like a huge deal. Limited inventory is another thing that bugs people about these games. I actually really enjoy it. There's plenty of storage boxes for you to use in this game, and it really is not going to take a lot of backtracking if you need a certain item, like a valve, for instance, as you saw here in the gameplay. And it really there's like a certain strategy to like for like considering what items you want to bring. Like, you should never really have a full inventory. You should a part of the game really is, what items do I bring? How many healing items should I bring? How much ammo? What type of weapon should I bring? It's what adds a lot of the tension to the game. Which is a key aspect of the survival horror nature of the game. So yeah, I mean the combat is clunky, but it's not it's not supposed to be this like amazing combat or anything. I do gotta say though, a quick turn would be nice. Apparently the third game has one. That would be really helpful. I gotta say. Other than kind of like following the story in this game, you have puzzles. Puzzles are one of the big elements of these old survival horror games. One thing I noticed in comparison with the first game, this game generally has more of an action focus, I gotta say. I feel like there was a lot more combat in this game compared to the first game. It was also a lot easier than the first game. From the first game, I remember dying a lot. This game, not as much, though there were definitely a few sequences where I died and lost a decent amount of progress. But yeah, I don't know, something about this game, it's I don't know, felt easier to me. I don't know why though, because I feel like the characters have the same amount of health as they do in the first game. I don't know. It's hard to say why, but I just felt like this game, and I was playing on the normal difficulty in this game as well. There's also like an arrange mode in this game where you can change like weapon locations and enemy locations and things like that, which again adds extra content to the game, which is pretty cool. But yeah, no, this game I did feel was kind of easier than the first game. But back to puzzles. This game still has puzzles, but they're far easier than the first game. One of the things I'm not crazy about with the first Resident Evil game are the obtuse puzzles. But for the most part, I really didn't enjoy them. I thought they were really tedious and obnoxious. This game, they toned them down. I gotta say, they're really simplistic. It's really just like collecting certain items like red jewels, and then you'll immediately know the spot. Like right here, for instance, in the gameplay here, it's pretty easy to tell what items are going to be needed where. In fact, there's not a single puzzle in this game that stumped me. They're all really easy. And it's kind of odd, I gotta say. The first game had a lot more of them, and there were a lot more in depth, I guess, but more obtuse. I'm not a big fan of these kind of puzzles, these adventure game style puzzles, like there are in the first game. I feel like the director Hideki Kamiya directed this game, and he's known for liking like a lot of action movies and action games, right? I do wonder if he was a big part of why the puzzles are toned down in this game, but it's one of the reasons why I like this game more than the first one. The less annoying puzzles, the better for me. But I know people are going to disagree with that. A lot of people really do like those puzzles in the first game. It does make me curious to see what they're going to be like in the third game, or if they're going to go back to those type of puzzles. But yeah, the gameplay in this game, it's I don't know, it's a scary game too. Like it's definitely it's got that horror aspect. This game made me actually legit scream 4 times. It's really good with its jump scares actually. Maybe a little bit of spoilers here, but I got to talk about this one. There's one particular one where you'll get like this item for a particular puzzle, and it's really great at making you, because I mean you're gonna get this puzzle item, and you're immediately gonna think to yourself, oh, okay, I remember, it's this room I need to go back to use this to progress through the game. So in your head, you're kind of thinking to yourself of the puzzle solution and how you're going to get there. So you're not really thinking about anything else, at least for me. So as I'm exiting this room, this liquor jumps through this window, and it legit scared the fuck out of me. Like, I was just, for whatever reason, it should be obvious. There's this giant window there in the room. But I don't know, I was so focused on this puzzle that it really got me, I gotta say. And there's other clever moments they introduced jump scares in this game that I really thought was well done. I feel like they were more effective than in the first game, honestly. This game also has a terrific atmosphere to it. It's got this sense of dread that I just absolutely love. It's like these old survival horror games. I really do love the atmosphere. Oh, and actually the gameplay here, it's showing it. That's the moment right there. It was actually a dog, actually. Which, sorry, I'm kind of spoiling some of the jump scares in this one, unfortunately, just because of the gameplay here. But yeah, that moment there was pretty great. I really like that one. But yeah, great atmosphere. It's just this great sense of dread to it, and the music completely helps out, which I'll get to that. But I mean, that about, I guess, covers it for gameplay. This it's interesting. It's a survival horror game. It wouldn't strike you as something that you would maybe call fun, right? But I had fun playing this game. I loved exploring this police station, these environments, and doing these minor puzzles. And kind of like the survival aspects of it. Actually, one thing I forgot to mention, how you save your game. Ink ribbons, the limited resource, which, this was in the first game as well, but it's something I really appreciate. It really makes you think, kind of consider what save points you want to use, and being prepared. This game is all about, a lot of it is preparation too, being prepared for what might come around the corner, and there's all sorts of little moments like this too, where you can use the cord item there to close up these shutters, so that hallway will be safe later in the game. A ton of cool little details like that in this game that I really loved as well. But I gotta say, I finally understand the appeal of these old survival horror games. It really is survival horror. And it was great to go back to, and it was so different from a lot of the stuff I'm playing these days that I really enjoyed it. It was a great time. Graphics, it's a PS1 game. Obviously, you have these blocky 3D character models, but the pre-rendered backgrounds still hold up. I've always been a huge fan of 3D or not 3D pre-rendered backgrounds in old PS1 games, and this game's no exception. The backgrounds look really good. It's just, it's a PS1 game. It's obviously going to look dated in a lot of aspects, and the character models and cutscenes are probably the most notable there. But it might be, I guess, for some people too tough to go back to. I think the GameCube version is the best looking version of this game. I think they spruced up some of like the character models and things like that, but it still sort of looks like a PS1 game. And like I was saying, there's no proper remake for this yet. It's going to be interesting, though, to see what that remake is going to look like as well. Yeah, if you're someone that can't handle these old PS1 graphics, it's unfortunate, but I don't think it's going to be a roadblock. And I've often said this many times before. Graphics to me are always like the least important part of a game for me, and I can find myself easily able to go back to old games like this. I think for the time this game looked amazing from what I've heard from other people. Like I didn't play this game when it came out, right? So it's, at the time this was this looked amazing, especially the cutscenes from what I've seen online. Another thing too I want to kind of briefly mention is the N64 port of this game apparently is actually a great way to play this game. It's apparently they got all the cutscenes on a cartridge. Apparently it's like a technical marvel, that N64 version. Graphics, love the pre-rendered backgrounds. The character models, cutscenes, obviously not the greatest. But the game definitely has a interesting like look to it. It's got a very like dark, gritty look to it, which I like. Audio, music. Oh man, the music in this game is awesome. It's great. It's a lot of like kind of piano driven, like somber music that really fits the tone of the game. The safe room music, the safe room music in these games always seems to be the best music, and it's the same thing with this game. I love the safe room music. The song that plays when you immediately enter the police station for the first time. And actually, it's in the lobby area. The music that plays in the lobby area, absolutely love that song. And the music is such a key component in making like the atmosphere of this game really effective and really creepy. But these games the atmosphere is nothing compared to the Silent Hill games. It's no Silent Hill 2. Like, that game to me is still like a mastercraft in building atmosphere. And the sound design in this game, some great weapon sound effects, but it's not as like as crazy as something like the Silent Hill games. But it's still well done. Like, the audio overall, the voice acting, I guess I gotta mention. I mean, it's not great. The funny thing with it is it's all Canadian voice actors, and you can tell, like the gun shop owner his voice. Oh my god, it's just like, man, it's so obvious. It's pretty hilarious. But as a Canadian, I gotta love all the Canadian voice actors for this game. It's interesting that Capcom apparently there's a lot of Capcom games that have like all Canadian voice acting, which is kind of interesting. That not bartender, gun shop owner. I think one of the first things he says is like, "Sorry about that." It's just, it made me laugh because, like, man, it's so obvious. Like, anyone could immediately tell, or Americans could immediately tell the voice acting is Canadian in this game. But it's much better than the first game. Obviously, you don't have those goofy lines like the Master of Unlocking and all that shit. So it's a step up over the first game, but it's not like amazing or anything. But it adds kind of like a campy feel to the game, which I like. I mean, that about covers it, I guess. I've kind of, I guess, covered everything I wanted to talk about. A bit of a long review, I know, but I'm just really impressed with this game. I really enjoyed it, and it's got me excited to play the rest of the series. It's never gonna be up there with Silent Hill for me, like the first 3 Silent Hill games. But I gotta say, I finally do understand the appeal, and I really just like that it is survival horror at its core. Like that. That's exactly how I would describe this game. It's such a perfect genre name for these games. And if you haven't played Resident Evil 2, definitely go and check it out. There's multiple ways to play it. It's on PS3 like I did. You can get it on PS1. The N64 port's good. There's the GameCube one. I don't think it's on PS2. No, I don't think so. I think there's a Dreamcast version. I'm pretty sure. Or maybe I'm thinking Code Veronica. I'm not sure about that. But there's multiple ways to play this game. Anyways, have you guys played this? What do you think of it? So far, it's my favorite in the series after 4. Really, really love this game. And people that kind of have dismissed tank controls and this type of game in the past, give this a chance. I just give it a chance. I think you'll be surprised. The tank controls, they'll put you off at first, but after like maybe 30 minutes or so, you'll get used to them. It's not too bad. I guess the length of the game too. It's a perfect length for me. Each campaign is like maybe 6-7 hours at most, and you'll definitely want to play A and B, the A and B campaign. It's like you won't get the full story if you don't do that. But I guess before we close out the review, I guess really the negative things. I think the boss battles are probably the weakest element of the game. It's where the controls just really show their weaknesses. I really am not a fan of the way you basically just unload all your powerful ammo into them and constantly heal. I will say the ending of the Leon B campaign is kind of bullshit too. After the really annoying boss, they throw another one at you, and the first time I got to it, I didn't have enough ammo because I don't know, I was kind of stupid. I wasted too much ammo before, but I actually ended up dying because I didn't have enough power ammo, so I had to do a lot over again, which was kind of annoying. But I don't know. That's kind of the nature of these games. But anyways, I've gone on long enough. That's it, guys. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.